Welcome to the Kingdom Recovery Conference. I am Tyrell Moyd, your host for Kingdom Recovery. Tonight, we are blessed to have three of my friends actually as presenters on this evening. For our first breakout session, we have Hillu Beyene and Tiffany Scott. Hillu will be talking to us this evening about people in recovery and sharing his own story from that perspective. Hillu Beyene is married and a father of four. He is a person in long-term recovery. In 2011, he started his journey of recovery and soon after embarked on the mission with the support of many to provide recovery support services to Marylanders. Since that time, Hillu has been a mentor and advocate for individuals seeking to enter or maintain long-term recovery. Currently, Hillu is a certified peer recovery specialist, CPRS, in Maryland, and a registered peer supervisor, an RPS, for peers in Baltimore at Baltimore County Department of Health. He is a core trainer for 3C Recovery Support Training Institute and holds the 3C commitment that it's not just important that we serve, it's equally important how we serve. And our charge is to serve well.
Well, hello. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. So good to see you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
All right. Okay, I'm getting more. Good evening. Wow, this is exciting. This is exciting, this conference. It's really exciting. Hi. I think everybody's in. We can get started. And just want to say thank you again. I humbly come to you to share my story of recovery, which is not unique to me. And that's the part that is really makes it important that we share our stories, because it is too often, too many times we hear the stories. Again, I humbly come to you to share the story with you. I'm a bit nervous, but I want to share with you. My name is Hillu Beyene. Helena is my birth name. I am a person in long-term recovery. And what that means is that, you heard that earlier, is that I haven't found it necessary to put any kind of mind or mood altering substance into my body for a little bit over 10 and a half years. And as a result, my life has changed way beyond anything I could have ever imagined. And I used to live in Hollywood. So I say the best Hollywood script writer couldn't write the way my life has changed, has been transformed for me. And so that's what it means. I choose to describe my recovery in that way and not as an addict at this point, because it is important to acknowledge that maintenance piece, that I am in long-term recovery. I'm not in that active addiction. Not that that's not some place where people are, but for me, it is. I am maintaining my long-term recovery, and that puts a little different feel for me on that. Just to give you a little background, I just want to talk about a little bit about where I came from, who I am, and a little background, and then go into my recovery story. It is a span of about 41 years, and I will cut it into a segment where we can all share. And at the end, we'll have opportunity to have any questions and answers. I was born in Ethiopia. I'm originally from Ethiopia. I grew up in Ethiopia until the age of 12. One thing I know now in my recovery, and knowing what I know now, I had a challenge from the start, not with drugs, but with feeling connected, or wanting to be involved or connection with people. I had being a part of, I'd never felt like a part of something. And that's what I realized now was happening back there when I was 9, 10 years old. Because for me, back home growing up, with my dad and my 5 siblings, 1 brother and 4 sisters, and my mom and dad, growing up in Ethiopia, there was a system of no middle class. You just have the well-to-do or the not really poor. And there was a class system there that I never felt internally was good or inherently made me feel comfortable, because we could not go talk to, we couldn't mix. There was strict line of rules we had to follow. But I always felt something about the kids I saw playing soccer or football down the street, and I couldn't be a part of. For many times I would walk over there and I would end up getting punished, or they would get punished for being a part of that. But for me, my first feeling of connection was really happening as a child. One day I went over to where they were playing ball, and I decided to just hang out no matter what the consequences would be. And they at that time were getting, I had a good upbringing, but they had this gasoline soaked rag, and they were putting it up in their nose, sniffing it, and just really falling out. And they asked me if I wanted to do that. And I remember I was 10 years old, and I said, sure. And I did that, and I got sick as a dog. I thought I was going to die. I didn't. I threw up. They literally carried me and put me by my door and left. And I said I would never do that again. But 2 days later, they came back and they threw some rocks over the fence and said, hey, you want to come and play with us? At that moment, I felt accepted. I felt part of. There was a common, no matter how bad I felt, the connection took a bigger, a deeper feeling for me. So at that point, when I decided to continue that path with them doing that, an incident happened. We would go out in the woods and do this. And at one point, I was physically assaulted and sexually abused that day. I was 10 years old by the same people that I seeked approval from. The shame that I would bring on my family was so big because I shouldn't have been there anyway. I never shared it with anybody. All I know is I wanted to crawl in my skin and die because I couldn't share it with anybody. I couldn't tell anybody. I had to pretend like everything was okay for me at that point, a 10-year-old boy not knowing what was happening. And I remember that I was contemplating committing suicide. I would plan it out. I wanted to die. I just didn't know how to do it. I would look at jumping off of into the water hole. I would think about it. I'll say, tomorrow I'm going to do this. Tomorrow I'm going to do this. And at some point, and God has stepped into my life so many different places. Looking back, I can point out so many places. There was nobody else's hand, but God's hand that pulled me out of those situations. Nobody else could have. Because in the moments that I was planning that, my dad he's been applying to come to the United States for school. Because I couldn't go outside of my house. I was in fear, shame, all these things happening. And if I brought it up to my family, it would bring national shame to everybody. And I couldn't talk about it in terms of that at that point. So my father got a commission to come to school in the United States. Now I was 11 and a half. And I felt like this is it. Now I can change my life. I can start over. So when we came to the United States, we came to California, I didn't know how to speak a stitch of English. I know how to say yes, no, cat, dog, things of that sort, little things. And I actually remember the very first day we landed in Palo Alto, California, when we came through San Francisco. And my father had told people that his family was coming. And the first kid came up to me and he said, "Oh, when did you come here?" He gave me sign languages for about 10 minutes. "When did you come here?" And all this stuff. Finally, when I understood him, I said, "I got it tomorrow," because that's the only word I know. And he looked more confused than anything. "What do you mean tomorrow?" But that was my first learning experience in English. So at that point, I still felt out of place because I didn't know the language. My father was always busy. I felt out of place again. I couldn't connect. I didn't know what to do. Just kept going through it. Luckily enough, within a few years, couple of years, I did learn some English and then started speaking good and feeling comfortable. But still connection wasn't there until the age 15. And I'm just jumping ahead. My first time I tried was at the football field, kids getting high, smoking weed. I didn't know what it was. I joined them, enjoyed it, started partying, you know, started becoming popular. I was out of my shell now, could smoke weed and I can do these things recreational. It was everybody I knew did it, so I didn't think there was anything not to do about it. Through that process, I graduated on to more. As I went into high school, I started doing cocaine. When I started doing cocaine again, it was, and drinking, alcohol was a big part. It started at the same time. So it was all recreational. It was fun. It got me out of myself. I was talking and enjoying, socializing, going to dances. But I said, this is the life. This is the way I want to live my life. And right before I went right into high school, my mom and dad divorced, and my mom decided to go back into Ethiopia, and so did my dad. So they had to put me in a foster home. So I went into foster home. Within 2 years, I went into 4 foster homes. It just didn't work out. Every time I went into a foster home, I was the one that I want to be kept there. So I would wash the dishes while kids are playing outside because I wanted you to keep me. But something happened. They never wanted to keep me. I would have moved into another home. Finally, I ended up in a home where there was a lot of there were 5 boys, which we got along great, and 1 girl. And the mom was an alcoholic. We literally had to put her in bed every night. And that became the life that I got used to. Through that process, it still was life good and partying and drinking and all that good stuff that I thought was what I wanted. And I started missing school. I started missing classes, not going. Nobody was checking after me. My parents weren't here. I was in a foster home that I felt, didn't pay. I can do whatever I wanted. Well, it came to the point to where I didn't graduate. I dropped out of high school. And gradually, all the recreational stuff, I'm smoking weed, getting high and everything, all this stuff, and just partying. It became a big party. I had no accountability. Everybody I knew was doing that. So it was normal. That is the way. I didn't know any other way now because I've been so separated from my family. Then move fast forward around 1985 when I did get my GED later on, but around 1985 I was living in Oakland, and somebody presented me with the opportunity of try this drug, and it was rock cocaine. It was crack at that time. It was flooding the streets of Oakland in California, and I thought I found my what I needed to make me feel normal. Once I tried it, I fell in love right away. And through that process, I don't know where the switch happened. It stopped being recreational, and I had to have it every day. I had to do it every day. I didn't recognize it as an addiction. It was just something that I needed to do. And when I tried to stop, I couldn't. I needed more. And the insanity had been setting in, but I didn't know what it was. Through that process, all I knew how to do was seek that drug and nothing else. And my family didn't get in touch with any families. I started I became homeless very early on. I started sleeping in cars or people's houses, things of that sort. So through that process, I became very empty inside. But I became survival mode. Everything was about getting what I want and what I need. I never thought about getting help. Then I started hearing people, oh, he's coming over. Oh, no, you know what? We don't want you over here. People started telling me what a bad guy I was, and I really believed I was. I started getting arrested for little things, stealing, which was little, I thought, or possession. And I didn't think nothing of it. My addiction was just my addiction. That's just what I do. I didn't think about I can get some help. And right after 1987, I had my first child. And my child, I wasn't there when he was born. 97, I'm sorry, I fast forwarded. When my son was born, I wasn't there. I got to know him 6 months after he was born. I wasn't there because of my addiction. I just wasn't present. I didn't know what it felt like. I couldn't be a father. And at that time, I simply would come into his life and get out of his life, come into his life, get out of his life, just momentarily, only to satisfy. And when I was there, I took something, I took something. And so I inherently thought I was a bad person who didn't care about anything and just hurt people. All I wanted to do was survive. But every time I say, I got to stop this madness, I need to do something. I hate this. I don't want to do this anymore. And in that process, again, in the Silicon Valley, I was introduced to another drug. I figured changing drugs was the way to go for me. I didn't know there was help. I just thought I was a bad person who did this. And I didn't know how to change. I didn't have any information. All I knew was people were calling me a drug addict, junkie, a thief, liar, just all these kind of things. And I lived those things. I believed those things about me. I called myself those things. And I was introduced to a different drug at that point. In the late 90s, I got introduced to methamphetamine, which is meth. And that changed my life because it allowed me to stop doing cocaine. But I thought that this would be the one that will help me get better because I can stay up and do work and things of that sort. What I didn't realize is that they called it the devil's den. And I heard that. And later on, I realized because it stole my soul, I felt. No sleep, no eating, all these things. I felt like zombie-like. And that I wouldn't sleep for weeks take power naps and not eat. You either get more or you crash. And that was my experience. I would crash. I lost total touch with all family. In between that time in 1986, I did all those 90s to 2003. I did all these things. And I had 2 children in between that time. And still, I only saw them for the first couple of years of their life in California. I was incarcerated for possession and not following rules and sent immediately to San Quentin prison. I was sent to San Quentin prison for 3 years. And I sat there, I'm like, this is not who I am. What am I doing here? Locked up 23 hours a day with, I say, criminals that I never thought I would be around, but all the time I had caused myself my path into there. I swore up and down when I got out of there, I would never touch another drug and be back there. But 3 years later, when I got out, nobody wanted to come pick me up. Or I didn't try, I don't think. A friend of mine came to pick me up. And on the way home, he said he had a little bit of that meth. I said, I can't do it. He said, okay. And now I get it when they say that the first time you meet somebody, they give you the first one is free. And not 24 hours after that, I was off and running again. Within 24 hours after 3 years of San Quentin, I thought I was insane. My brain was broken and I wanted to die, but I could still did those things. Continue forward. My recovery started. So all this insanity didn't change anything. But in 2007, to go fast forward, in 2007, my sister, I had burned all the bridges that can possibly be burned and some. In 2007, my sister lived in Maryland and she was about to start a business. She was the only one talking to me in my family. And she said, Hillu, please come out here. She knew I had the gift for gab at that time. She was starting a used car sales place with her husband. And she said, come on, I believe in you. You can do this. Let me help you. You just need someone to believe in you again. And I came. For 6 months, I stayed clean. And sure enough, though, I didn't know how to deal with boredom. I didn't know how to deal with myself or sit by myself. I needed always this distraction to take me out of myself because the shame and the guilt I have felt for years just piled up, piled up, piled up. And that's the only way. I couldn't take it for much longer. Slowly, I find my way to the same drugs that I left from. Within a few months, I was killing her business of being here. After 6 months, I was here, and soon after. One day in 2011, going forward, I'm just going a little bit ahead on that. In 2007, she's 11. I'm sorry. She said to me, she found out that I had just taken some money from her, and she had lost her job at that same time. And I was lying about it. And she said to me, she has 3 children, and I was living in her basement at that time. And she said to me, Hillu, you have brought shame and you have endangered my family. To go back a little bit, about a week earlier, the DEA had raided her house with me in it. The DEA had raided her house with me in it and the kids there. And I had lied to her all this time. And to see, and the DA took me out. And when they brought me, when I got released, the DA agent looked at me and he said, you look like you come from a good family. You look a mess. The challenges throughout all this time, I thought I looked okay. I'm hiding it. I'm the only one who didn't know it. Everybody else knew it. And at that point, she said, you know what, Hillu? I've come to my rope and you have endangered my family. And she said to me, you know, I know that this disease may kill you. And I'm going to have to come to accept that. That might be the way. I have to accept that. But if you want to get some help, I'm going to continue to help you. I'm going to continue to help you. But if you're going to hurt my family, if it's going to hurt my family, I don't want to have anything to do with you. I didn't have any place to go. She told me I had to leave her basement. I didn't know many people except to go back to that drug use. I didn't want to do that. She said, call NIH. Maybe if I call NIH, they'll tell me some kind of operation for my brain. I'm such a bad person. When I called NIH, they said, there's nothing we can do for you. But you know what? There's a local health department in Montgomery County. Why don't we give you their number and give them a call? And I have to go back again. It's 40 years is such a big span that I had been to a couple of treatment centers in California, but I thought they were like a dating service. You go in, you meet somebody, you leave, or you go get high with them. You go in, you meet somebody, you get high. So it was that revolving door. I never heard the message. I just was not ready. I was always that pre-contemplation or contemplation piece we talk about, going back and forth, to the point to where it never sunk in. And So I went, my sister said, I will drive you to this appointment and I will leave you there. Make a decision. Unless you're making a decision to try to do better, and I will be there with you 100%, I will not come back and pick you up. Well, I went in there and they did the test, they talked to me, and finally they said, there's a treatment center down the street. I'd like you to go. Would you like to go there? I said, what? There's a treatment center. I think I'm ready. She said, here's the number, call them 3 days in a row. If you call them, they will come, they'll accept you. And I said, okay, give me the number. So I remember the young lady, Miss Perez, she gave me the phone number and she said, call them. Tomorrow's Friday, you might have to call them on Monday and Tuesday. I said, okay, thank you. And I'm excited now. I got a resource and I start walking out. I go to the elevator and I hear somebody calling me back. And it was Miss Perez. She said, you know what, Hillu, come back here. Let's make this call together. That changed my life. She had an insight, which I didn't. If I left that room, I would never call that number. I would ended up going somewhere else, because so many times I've been in a position where I'm changing everything and I try to do it. I got this. I'm going to handle it by myself. I'm going to take care of this. I don't need anybody else. It's my problem. Well, she called me back and she took me in her office and she said, let's make this call together. That was the kindest thing that I can experience at that point. She said, let's make this call together. Made a call to that treatment center. And at that point, the treatment center, she said, please talk to him. And I found out that's what they call a warm handoff now, which I try to extend at every step. And she contacted me, connected me with them. And they said, you can come Monday to this treatment program. And I'm like, okay, I'm thinking, you know what? Great. I have a place to go. I'll make my sister happy. It'll be okay. I'll meet somebody there. I'm still trying to work the angles in my head, to be honest. So I told my sister Monday I have a place to go. She said, come home. I came home. I stayed in the basement. I was crashing that whole weekend. And on Monday, she took me to this treatment center. When I went into that treatment center, every single day I wanted to leave. Every single day I was trying to think of a way to get out, smoking cigarettes and things of that sort. There was even occasions where I would go in the bathrooms and just kind of light a match or a cigarette lighter because the ritual was so big for me. And then I said, what the heck are you doing, Hillu? This has got to stop. Something has to change. That's when I met somebody who, for the first time I knew, was a peer recovery specialist. Somebody who had been through the process. And he looked at me, he says, you remind me of me. And for the first time, God has allowed me to hear something and internalize it. I said, what do you mean? He said, I was like you. I know exactly what you're going through. And he told me his story, and I can pick up on feelings of that he was sharing about. Circumstances may be different. For the first time, I felt a connection in terms of somebody who's doing well, who is doing what I want to stop doing. He has done that specific thing. And so I stuck close to him. And he said, every day you can leave, but every day he will, remind me, just stay one more day. One more day, one more day. If you hang around, guess what? I promise you, your life will change way beyond anything you can ever imagine. And I shared that at the beginning of my story because that has come to fruition. And you don't have to do this alone. You don't have to do this alone. And that gave me the confidence to ask for help. I stayed there for those 28 days. Even though I wanted to leave every single day, with the support of another recovering addict, and seeing that, wow, if you can do it, I can do it. And for the first time, God allowed me to see that, even though I've seen that kind of situation, other treatments, other programs. I've heard about AA. I even went to AA convention one time, didn't know what it was, came out of fog, you know. So in that process, my family was very supportive, but it was always given up from a far distance. You know, my mom was my biggest hero, and her prayer took me through a lot of stuff. If it wasn't for her prayer, again, that would be another thing. And so it was really through that treatment process. I went into a 6 months. They talked me, asked me to go into a 6 months program. I went reluctantly because my sister said I still couldn't come back. But sticking you through, something sunk in. And while I was there, I was exposed to the Recovery Coach Academy. I was going to AA, NA, and the 12-step program. And that all helped me out very well. I got a sponsor. I had somebody to share a story with. There was a structure I needed to practice. I did that. And through that process, I came out to do the training for Recovery Coach Academy. And in that process, I realized that what I want to do, the misery I went through, God didn't bring me this far to drop me, and I need to share my story and my recovery process with someone else. So I learned and went to got my certification, and I moved very fast through the story. But what I knew was that I realized that there was a lot of stigma in my past. I believed I was a bad person because I believed everybody told me I could never change, or he'll never change. He'll always be this. He'll always be that. You know, I remember way back in the time sleeping under semi trucks and talking about, you know what, this can't be my life. This can't be how I end. But eventually I came out of it, and in terms of my recovery now, my connectedness. And in 2016, I got married, and I have a new child at that point. I have three other children, and my baby now, who's 6, will never have to see me in that misery. And I've been in his love every single day. And as a joy of that, my life has been reconnected with my family, my mom, my sisters, my nieces, my nephew. My life is full of family that I have lost. That's what recovery means to me. Recovery means to me getting my life back to be a productive member. My family looks to me for suggestions and thoughts and advice. My nieces and nephew call me. You know, other people call me. So the connectedness I have, I never thought I could ever have. God gave me a do-over. That opportunity I have with my son now, I didn't have with my other children. And now they're connected to him, and they're loving that. So who else can do this but God, to allow me to have a do-over, to be able to do this? I am 60 years old, and I have a beautiful little child to be able to live fully and to share. And a beautiful wife. I have a great career, and every single day I try to make a difference in someone else's life for what was so freely given to me. And to share that if I can do it, you can do it. And I say all this with saying, you know, all the things that happened in the past that I talked about for so long, I'm not proud of them. I'm not proud of all the jail time, all the stealing, or the lying, or the conniving I did. I'm not proud of them. But you know what's magic for me, or what's real, is that through the process of recovery, my connectedness, the other side of addiction, I've come to be in a place of not be ashamed of them. By not being ashamed of them anymore, I'm able to give back through that process and to fulfill my life on every single day. And giving back, and the opposite of addiction is connection. What I got into addiction for, to feel connected, took me totally out. And now recovery has put me back into a connection on a daily basis. And recently I found KCM, and I am in heaven, literally. In that process I am, and I look to grow and learn. I have a lot to learn, and I just humbly present myself for that on a daily basis. This conference, I haven't, usually in my work, I share my story in pertinent little pieces to allow people to support them where they need the support. So to be able to share it in a bigger context, I jump a little all over, but the fact of the matter is recovery is possible. And when we stigmatize people, when we talk about people, sometimes it blocks, for me, when I was told all those bad things about me, I was like, I can't go there. I can't get recovery. It's not me, it's for somebody else. I had given up on that. I had told people who was not. Now I want to exude hope. It is possible. If I can do it, you can do it. But you know what? You don't have to do it alone. And let's share with you. So that's how I moved through. And I am grateful for the life I have now. And thank you for listening and sharing. Thank you. Thank you. Now, what I would like to do is that I want to share a little video with you. Recently, I was asked to do a public service announcement with Maryland Public Television. It's going to be aired about recovery. It's just a short little piece. Many people, there was a lot of us that were asked to do it, but I'd just like to share that with you real quick. And then afterwards, maybe we can have some question answer session. So here is the video.
My name is Hillu Beyene. Everybody calls me Hillu. I've been in recovery for a little over 10 and a half years now. The final time for me was the final person in my family said, let me help you change your life, and allowed me to come with my sister. She was the catalyst, and after many tries, everybody. And what happened for me was she realized my use and said, I love you, but I've come to realize you may die from this disease. And I've come to have to accept that. But if you're bringing this insanity to me and my family here, I can't. I can't do what I was doing before. And I had just taken some money from her that day when she was saying, and I had every plan of going to whatever I need to go to. And she told me no. At that point, I needed a place to go. And I went into treatment. I didn't know what to do. I said, I need help, which is a place I've been to many times. Many, many, many times. But when I went into this treatment, there was a PIR in there. And I wanted to leave every day from this treatment I entered. And he said to me, you know what? You can leave anytime you want. But for the next 28 days, I remember this. He said, don't do anything you want to do and try to do everything you don't want to do. Just for the next 28 days. No matter what, I'm here. And I remember that. I said, I can try to do this up to 2 weeks. I can go. But I took it a day at a time, and something clicked, for the first time I heard it in that way. Feeling of cared for, or what I wanted was important. And to say, as long as you do what you need to do, and if it is not harming me, I'm here for you. Meaning, I'm not going to tell you what to do. And then the suggestion versus telling me what to do. Give it a try. What's you got to lose? And I never looked back. I quit smoking cigarettes that same day. And it was an experience that has changed my life. Because my before entering recovery, was all the insanity of addiction and use of substances and incarceration and all that. So there have been many attempts that I kept walking toward the substances. I didn't know how that happened. So entering into treatment and coming to a place of willingness, being able to get the support, changed my life. There was stigma, definitely. And I realized more about it later because subconsciously, the stigma that I was experiencing, I owned it because it was so labeled, especially from the criminal justice system and cultural stigmas about the shame that it brought onto the family. And my culture, I'm from Ethiopia, and there was a thing about not talking about it. So it kept me from that, from getting treatment, getting help. The labels just blocked every opportunity to treatment. And I started to own those labels. And then I was faced with that, the same thing with my parole officer, from people in the community. I told this time, you never change, you're never gonna change. And that stigma, that hardest, that time of not acceptance drove me for another 10 years of insanity. So I try to pass on to people. I know you want to get out of the detention center and you want to go, you're going to do what you want to do. Take it a step at a time. You don't have to do this alone. I'm not going to judge you. My process is not your process. Your process is your process. How can I support you be able to be well today? Keep the judgment away and just say, what is it that I can help you with? You did, you need to lay your head down. Okay. Need some food? There are some places. Let's get, So to keep the stigma and the shame, you're a person. What is it? If you could have things your way for the next 4 years, in the next 4 years, what would it be change? And how do we start working on that? I just want to keep you alive because shame and stigma is the biggest barrier to somebody getting any type of help. A mark of shame, don't put that on any person. My name is Hillu Beyene, and I'm thankful for the gift of recovery, and I will not be stopped by stigma.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Thank you for allowing me to share that. Sorry, my battery's about. So thank you for that. With that, I'd like to open it up. Any questions and sharing your piece of the story or a conversation about it? Anybody have any questions or want to say something?
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment.
Sure, please.
I'm in South Carolina, Greenville, South Carolina. There are a lot of people around who are suffering from addictions, and I come in contact with many of them, particularly in my neighborhood or through the church that I'm affiliated with. One of the as I engage, one of the descriptives that I have said to them, and I suppose that the term is pre-contemplation, but I refer to it as sick and tired of being sick and tired. They haven't gotten to that place yet of being sick and tired of being sick and tired. The testimony that you gave gives some tremendous insights as to sensitizing to get a better understanding and therefore better equipped to handle our engagements. There are many, so I appreciate your telling your story. Given that narrative, because it really was enlightening. So I thank you and congratulate you on your successes.
Thank you, Bishop. Yes, it is. Yeah, it's important. The people that are around us, we see it. And that sick and tired. At some point it comes in, but the challenge is that we got to keep people alive until they get to that point of some time. And. Thank you, Bishop. Anyone else? And one of the biggest things I've learned is also the many pathways to recovery, because for the first, 12 step was such a big part of, the NA, and that was the only way. But you know what, it served its purpose for me, and it continues to. But now I'm open to all pathways, and that's what really I think I find the saving grace in my transition and my maintaining my recovery is not being stuck, being open to the new opportunities of supporting myself to grow. Yes, Mr. Harrison. Lewis. Yes.
Yes.
Hi.
Good evening. Thank you for taking my question. My question is sobriety the same for all? I mean, what about people that smoke or drink casually and don't become addicted? Is there the same type connection lost there?
And then again, I think we all agree the recovery is different for everybody. It's not the same for everybody. The idea is to stay well. It is possible to stay well and live well and be well for long periods of time in that process. So it is not the same. There are other ways, whatever's working to keep person well is what I believe. Sobriety for some is total abstinence, and for some it's not. My brother, for example, was in the deep of the drug addiction with me. But when he found out he was not going to be able to teach in college, he dropped it like a hot potato and quit. And now he drinks casually. And for the first 5 years, I was like, you're relapsing. But he's been doing that for 20 years now, So sobriety, it's different for everyone, I believe. Anyone have any
Have
thoughts for him?
Sean Pringle's hand is raised.
Mm-hmm. Hi, Sean.
Well, I want to thank you, my brother, for sharing your story. So profound, me being a person in recovery myself. And just to sort of put it in perspective, I think it was a perfect tie into sort of the message that Elder Tyrell was giving yesterday with your whole story of that connection not being there, that loss of connection, even way beyond when this member living in a foreign land, first of all, somewhere where you don't even speak the language. So that connection even not even being there then. And then the trauma you sustained from when you talked about what happened in the woods, that total loss of connection again, still now precipitating what was to become your actual addiction. And then now the socialization where you had started sort of processing all those ideas and ideologies to be your norm. And that's what we do, people who have now become addicted. Those things that we now start to partake in that fill that connection that we have lost now become our norm. And we have socialized those things to as actually internalizing that. And so now when we continuously do something that fills that void, the continuation of that continuity of both trying to keep it going and that analgesic effect that we get from the drug just drives us to a point where we just sort of lose, I don't want to say lose control, but obsess and compulse over what it is that fills that space. And I myself, now going on 10 years in sobriety or in recovery, can relate to that and know exactly what it is. And I love the way when you transition into when you found a connection, because I too found that same connection in the same field, becoming that peer recovery specialist. I did, the NA and the 12 steps and those programs, and those were tremendous for me, but it was also in combination with educating myself as to what this disease has done to me and how it is that I can also combat it differently with the support of all these outside entities. And I think you laid that out
perfectly. My brother, my co-facilitator, and I just support you so well. You know, I love you, Hillu, and it was just, you know, so heartfelt. So I commend you for that. This is not easy to share your story, you know, and sometimes I try to not forget, but I don't wear it as a moniker. But it's helpful to be able to now come out and show that this is who I truly was at some point, and we do recover. You know, we do go on to do better things. We do get better. We do live a life of wellness, and you continue to do that daily. You know, and it's just awe-inspiring, and I love you. So thank you for
Thank you.
delivering that message.
Thank you. You inspired me as well. We continue. Thank you.
Unless we hear your story the way that you are now, unless we hear your story, we wouldn't believe there was a story. There's no way that we would know without you telling us that it's a story. That's how good God has been to you.
Yes, thank you. Yes, and allow me to share that. Thank you. Yes.
Absolutely. I just want to say thank you for sharing. And I see the God light. I know there's a light shining right on your head, but I see the God light in you. And as you shared your story, I was blessed to hear how you continue to search for connection. I'm very thankful that you've connected with us as KCM, because we definitely appreciate who you are and what you bring to us in the ministry just via your love and presence.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hillu, I also wanted to just say how much I enjoyed your story. I celebrated 13 years from crack addiction, October 16th. Not a day goes by that I don't give God thanks for delivering me from living at a bus stop and eating out of a trash can. And I agree with Shepherd Mother that if we didn't hear your story, we would never even connect you to such a story, as is the story of most people who are victorious in their recovery process. And one of the things that stood out to me, probably more than anything else, was the woman who made the phone call with you. Because it was a woman in my recovery process who reintroduced me to God in a way that I never knew God before. She gave me a book called The Shack and told me not to come back into her office until I had finished reading the book. And the book changed my life, no uncertain terms. It forced me to see God from a whole different perspective. And that started the process of my recovery, because one of the things that I celebrate with my recovery, and I guess I put it on a soapbox, is that I just believe that for a successful recovery process, there has to be a spiritual connectivity. There has to be some level of spirituality, some level of spiritual connectivity, whatever that may be, for me to maintain a successful recovery process. And just listening to you really just encouraged me to know that to be true. And it's just a beautiful testimony of what God can do, because he doesn't just deliver us, he restores us, and then puts us on a pedestal to shine the light for so many others who suffer to see. So thank you, my brother.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you so much for being a part of the journey with us. Thank you. So I believe we'll go back into the rooms.
In 91 seconds.
That was perfect timing. Thank you, Hillu.
you all so much for sharing and listening. And we are about 50 seconds away from being placed back with everyone else. This session was recorded. So we thank you that your story, even just your presence can be shared with other individuals.
Hi, I'm well. It's good to see you.
Good to be here.
Good to, yes, I'm well. Thank you. How are you?
I'm excellent.
Excellent. I love it.
Reverend Vale, how are you?
I am well, thank you. I am well. Grateful to be here this evening.
Yes.
Good evening, everybody. Hi, Reverend Vale.
Hi there.
Mm-hmm.
How's everyone?